Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for the third virtual town hall in the Downtown Paid Parking Program. It's 4 o'clock, so we're going to get started. My name is Jamie Larson. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services for the District of Tofino, and I'll be moderating the event this evening. I just have a few housekeeping things to get through, and then I'll pass the meeting over to Aaron Rogers, our Director of Infrastructure and Public Works, who will be doing a presentation. So to start off, I'd like to acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Chilliwack First Nation. I'd also like to provide notice to attendees that this virtual town hall is being video recorded and will be added to the public record. The town hall tonight will begin with a presentation from Aaron Rogers, followed by a question period. And please note that while we welcome healthy debate, opinions, and feedback, to ensure a safe space, any comments that include racism, personal attacks, or hate speech won't be tolerated. Disruptive participants will be removed from the session. So with that, I'll pass it over to Aaron Rogers to begin his presentation.
Hi, Jamie. I think you can probably hear me, but I don't think any of us can start our videos right now. I just wonder if we could just allow that. Great, thank you. I'll just get the presentation up. Great. Thanks, everyone, for joining us once again on our third meeting about our downtown pay parking program. Today, we'll be going through what we've heard over the last number of weeks since our last meeting. It's going to be based on a presentation and report that went to council last Monday at the Committee of the Whole, where council directed staff to start working with an option. So without further ado, I'll get right into the presentation. In terms of why we're doing this or what the intent of the pay parking program it's to ensure the availability of parking spaces, to make sure that when someone comes downtown, they can find a space to park and conduct their business. We're looking to encourage a mode shift to help meet some of our goals in terms of greenhouse gas reductions, active transportation, and healthy communities. And then finally, to develop a new revenue stream that the district can use to support important district projects, infrastructure, such as recreation and roads. The program in its current form was introduced to the community on April 4th. It goes back a little bit further than that into early January, but April 4th was our real jump off in terms of public consultation. Up to now, we've had 2 community meetings, 68 questions, a total of 125 attendees. Our Talk Tofino page has been very active. We've had about 275 comments. Fun fact, about 63% of those are related to residents not paying for parking. And then we've had about 1,500 unique visitors there, which I think is a pretty great number, because that, in a community of 2,500, if we think that most of those people are from Tofino that are applying, then that's a pretty amazing number of unique visitors to the site. In terms of social media, our reach, and this is as of, I believe, May 10th this data, but our social medias have reached 11,000 or just over 11,000 individuals or accounts, and we've had about 3,500 people engage, and up to today, probably 60 plus email responses. As I said before, and I think it was no surprise to anybody at this meeting, the resident free pass is the most popular sentiment. And so we took all that information and we reviewed it against our objectives, and staff presented council with some options on May 15th, on last Monday, and council directed staff to start working towards bylaw amendments for one of those options, which is what I'm getting the majority of what I'm going to present today. So I'll just go through the elements of the preferred option. This is 2 slides, and then we can get into sort of next steps, and then looking for any questions or comments about the program. We're still receiving feedback. And again, we will, even after the bylaws are adopted, we expect to adjust the program as we can throughout the year, and definitely after review in October of this year. So what is the preferred option? Well, the preferred option would provide free parking for everyone who had a beach permit. So if you currently have a beach permit, for the vehicles that are under that permit, you'll be allowed to park downtown for free in the pay parking areas. For everyone else who's not a beach permit holder, the pay parking will be in effect from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and the area, which I'll get to, I have a map I can share, but it covers a large part of the downtown core. Currently, we have a mix of 2 and 4 hour spaces and spaces otherwise designated, like 50-minute spaces of parent parking. And all of those 2 or 4 hour spaces are going to go to 4 hour maximum. So what that means is that if you're a resident that holds a beach pass holder, you can park for free, but if you park in any one location for longer than 4 hours, our enforcement folks will probably want to have a chat with you. It just means that we still need to move our vehicles at least every 4 hours. Highway 4, which is Campbell Street and the portion of First Street from Campbell to the dock it's currently 2 hour parking. That will become 1 hour timed parking, but not paid. So if you're a resident and you want to pop in and pop out, those spots should turn over fairly regularly, and we encourage everyone to park as much as they can and in the free time spaces and leave our pay parking spots available for the visitors as much as we can. Parking spaces adjacent to post office, bank, municipal hall, Wolf in the Fog, Gaia area, and the small Telus slot adjacent to liquor store will be 50-minute maximum turnovers, and that's to encourage quick visits, to maybe get a bottle of wine or check your mail or buy a loaf of bread. There's going to be a flat rate for parking, will be $2 per hour for regular vehicles and $4 an hour for recreational vehicles. And the recreational vehicle parking will remain in the areas that it currently is, which is primarily Gibson Street and a portion of 4th Street and a little bit of 3rd. The option selected by council combines our beach and downtown programs. That was for a lot of the conversations we've had. There was a lot of questions about why we couldn't do that. In fact, we can do that if we went to this free resident model, and so that's the route that we've chosen. This option includes the existing offshore permit program, so that will be largely unchanged. It includes a downtown resident permit program, so that's where someone who lives in the downtown is eligible to receive a pass or 2 passes, the first one being free and the second one being $150 to be able to park on a downtown street and not be concerned about the time limits. The downtown resident permit program is likely going to be a pilot project for us to explore what that looks like to move through the entire district in 2024, or at least definitely something that we're going to review and comment on. So just the final piece of this option is that there's lots of free parking still available. So Campbell Street and Lower First Street, the parent parking areas by the school, the very short duration spots, the post office and co-op and such. And then there's a small long duration spot near the end, close to Arnett and at First Streets. So that's the element of the option. This is a map. I probably won't spend a lot of time on this because there's a lot there. And so if we have any questions about specific areas, I think maybe through the questions and comments period, we can flip back to this map. So responding to community feedback, we heard a lot about these following items throughout the process. So in terms of offshore parking, that is largely unchanged and incorporated into the program. School parking was something that came up fairly early in the consultations, and we've addressed that through the parent-only parking restrictions around the school. We've heard requests to understand what's going to happen with the parking revenue. That conversation is alive. It will be going to council for discussion at the next committee of the whole, June 5th. So if you're interested in what potentials landing spot for the parking revenue, that would be a great meeting to attend in person or virtually. In terms of alternative transportation, I'm happy to share that we'll be running a beach shuttle program again this year, the free shuttle, and that it will also now go out to the communities of Tyastanis, Estewister, and Long Beach 3 times a day. The one system, why can't we have one system? We can do one system. We responded to that, and that is now in place. The free resident pass, the beach pass program, addresses the employee parking issue largely. And so currently we have timed restrictions in the downtown core 4 hours. Those are going to remain. So that should support the folks who are coming downtown to work and spending a large portion of the day downtown. And then finally, and I think I've discussed this a lot already in this presentation, is that the resident pass program will be in place, and it'll just live on top of the beach pass program. So in terms of next steps, we will be bringing a report forward to council on May 23rd to begin the process of amending our bylaws to allow this option to go forward. If council moves forward with the amendment to May 23rd, we potentially can adopt the bylaw on June 13th. Of course, this is subject to continued public participation and engagement. It's based on what we're hearing at the time. So these are the dates that we're targeting in terms of our own internal timelines, but those can change depending on what we hear over the next week or two. So with those dates above, our tentative implementation date is Friday, June 16th. The implementation, the adoption of these bylaws will also include amendments to our beach program. So we're going to be increasing the rates slightly and adding Howard Drive into the pay parking program. We're currently in the process of installing meters, meter pads, signage. You might have seen some telespars going up around town. Signage is now ordered, and we expect to be installing that signage over the coming month. We may have some program adjustments in between now and when we start. Definitely be reviewing the program on an ongoing basis, but again, at the end of the year. If you have any comments about it, you can reach me anytime at parking@tofino.ca, or you can leave comments on Talk Tofino. I want to say thank you for coming today on a sunny day, and thank you for all your valuable input over the last month and a half. It's been an exciting ride. I'm looking forward to seeing this program implemented and getting through 2023 to 2024. So with that, I'll stop sharing and open the floor for any questions or comments.
Thanks, Aaron. So to everyone who is in attendance, I just have a few notes on how the Q&A will work. So speakers can either sign up to speak by raising their hand using the raise hand function, and then we'll promote them to a panelist, and you'll be able to control your audio and your visual. So you can speak directly to Aaron Rogers, and you can have your video displayed, or just use your microphone. And the other option is to enter your questions into the Q&A box down at the bottom. So if you don't want to speak directly to staff, feel free to enter a question in the Q&A, and I'll be reading those out for Aaron to answer. So we'll get right into it. I do have one person signed up already to speak, so we'll start there, and then if anyone else would like to, please use the raise hand function. Otherwise, I'll start reading some of the questions that are in the Q&A box. So the first person is Natasha Barrett. And Natasha, I'm just going to promote you to a panelist. So give me a minute here, and then you'll be able to control your audio and video.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I've actually sent in an email about my concerns. So obviously in the prior town hall, the timeframes were set at hourly, so I didn't have to really get into this, but here I am for round two, feels like. So obviously I'm kind of curious about the choice of 4 hours and why, and who's that serving, and what's the kind of intention behind it.
Great. Well, thanks for the question. So the 4 hours, when we move towards a a parking program that allows a free resident pass, we wanted to make sure that parking continues to turn over. And so what we ended up with was a 4 hour length of time, which reflects what is currently in most of Tofino. So wherever we have timed parking currently, it's either 2 hours,
So
4 hours, or 15-minute parking. And so we wanted to make that as large as possible. So we just increased everything outside the 15 minutes and the Campbell Street ones to 4 hours. So that's where that came from.
okay, so I'm just kind of wondering, I mean, to be like perfectly direct, it's like, okay, obviously I run a business and, we've been here 35 years and this issue has always been there for us since the town opted for 4-hour parking. I've written loads, I've talked to bylaw, and I was told that, to kind of postpone it until the pay parking thing, because it hasn't worked for my business ever. And it hasn't worked for a lot of guests that come into my place. So, I'm just, to me, I'm just trying to kind of understand this arbitrary time of 4 hours, because there's a lot of different types of businesses in the downtown. So I hear all this stuff about residences and the importance of residences being able to park, but I also never hear about businesses and what businesses need to do. I do create jobs. I bring a lot of money into this economy, and I support tourism in a really big way. So I'm just going to say that my company cannot run, it is dependent on parking. I could rip down my building and build a parking lot in this spot. And then, I obviously wouldn't rebuild a kayaking company, but that would kind of be the option of for me if I had to provide my own parking. However, right now I am dependent on the street parking. You are locking out downtown from anybody who is over 4 hours. So I'm just wanting to ask you, what is somebody, a tourist who comes in from Ucluelet, or somebody who's bringing in gear, a day trip renter, a kayak tour operator, who's going on a day trip for 4.5, 5 hours they need, where are they supposed to park?
It's a great question. I mean, I think you and I have talked about this, Natasha, as well, and happy to take, this specific concern offline with you, because I did receive I did get the chance to read your email until later this afternoon, but happy to have this conversation offline too. But where is a tourist supposed to park if they're staying longer than those hours? Obviously, the first one's a municipal lot. You and I both know that that's a constrained lot as is, and then this year, yeah, even more so. And so at this point, that's our primary option, is that area. It also depends on when that person is coming into town. Are they coming in before 9 o'clock? And so there's no restrictions there, and then parking, from 9 to there. So I'm not sure what everybody's hours of a thing is, and that's not the information I have. So something perhaps we could talk about and explore. I think in your email to us, you suggested 5 hours. That's something, potentially we could take a look back and see if that's would make any material difference on our side, and sort of try to balance out the other stuff we're trying to do. So I think that was a good suggestion. I have some questions. Again, I don't really want to get into it here. I mean, I can, but I just want to ask just about how their business is operating and other options that may be possible. But I don't know if you'd rather do this, have this conversation, between yourself and myself offline, or we can do it here.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in a little bit of, I've obviously dealt with it, and I'd say the difference for me right now is once you put pay parking in and you have an enforcement, it's a punitive experience, right? Like, no offense to the bylaw department, but it's not been, like we haven't been getting a lot of tickets, which for me, I always joke, like, thank God, for staff shortages. So, because I have been worried that is a threat to my, maybe the only place I say thankfully for that. But, it has been always this kind of daunting possibility of an issue for us. And now it's real, and it's a real threat. Talking this season, can I actually function? It will cripple my business. It really will. There's no other way to say it. I am dependent on those parking stalls. So I did want to know how many parking spots are, I mean, I also do multi-day renters, so we're always telling them to go to that, to the overnight place, but I was wondering how many spots are there.
I can't tell you off the top of my brain. Let me just see if I can do this real fast. 15. I would say approximately, and this is a wild guess, about 40.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I would really appreciate to, I guess what I need to know as a business, because I have to make decisions. I mean, this is happening as my season is ramping up, and I've got guys training right now, and I'm like, am I sending them home, or are we going to run a season? So, you know, this is very a lot of uncertainty for my business that is just kind of happening. And I hear this arbitrary time frame, 4 hours, and like I don't understand the rationale and how it, like, are we trying to support downtown? Because, you know, I'm a business operator. You know, I think the downtown is to support businesses. But it seems like there's this intense focus on residents being able to always access parking, but I also do create jobs and economy. So I don't know, like, if that's a value to Tofino, because it doesn't feel like it right now. And, you know, so I definitely have to look, you know, at what that means for me, right?
Yeah.
In this area, and if this is really the right place to be running this type of business. So I'm sorry, I do just need your parking, and that's the way it is. But I think like every business in the downtown needs Tofino's parking. So I think I just happen to need more hours. And, you know, I just really want to bring up this whole thing of sustainability, because I am one of the only unmotorized, you know, things operating in the harbor. So I need more time. I can't do tours under 4 hours and make this business work. So, you know, I also feel like it's shutting down a kind of ecotourism business, which kind of is what I understand, you know, touts itself as a tourism destination. And yet how ironic that parking is what is threatening the business. So anyway, I guess you and I don't know the best way forward. I just need to let you know the gravity of the situation for me. What this is going to do to my business and the staff that work for me it is in jeopardy.
So, and again, appreciate everything you have to say. The parking program, including time stuff, has been in place. I think 2012 we put it in, and the current map in 2017. And so, as you know, as I know, the parking in front of your place has always been 4 hours. I remember a time when we did enforce the 4 hours parking. That hasn't happened in the last number of years due to COVID, and as you said, resources. And so, I'm not saying that doesn't affect what's happening. I just want to illustrate that this is not something new. This is just something that is now going to be encompassed into the program and enforced, which is something new to you. I completely understand that. But I wouldn't mind, you know, thinking about this and thinking about what other options, you know, may be available for businesses such as yours and buildings such as yours that have been in place in the downtown core for almost 100 years. I do understand where you're coming from, Natasha, and will commit to taking the time to maybe sit down with you and see if we can't work on some solutions together.
Awesome. I just want to point out one thing. There is a difference because you are expanding this program into other areas. There was like little secret stash spots people could go, and the timeframes are extending. So yeah, like you say, if somebody starts a tour at 1, they're going to be in the spot for 5 hours. So now it's 6. Like you're locking down the downtown like that to 4 hours, because you're now 10 to 6, right? Like it's not 10 to 4 anymore. So those little areas where somebody could start a tour at 2 or start a tour at 1 are now going to be, you know, going to get penalized where they wouldn't have before. So there's 2 major changes happening, right?
Yeah, and to your point about where the rationale is, where this 4 hours came from 10 years ago, was that areas that had places that were kind of in adjacent tour operators tended to have longer time periods, and that time was 4 hours, because that's basically what we heard, the feedback we heard from the community at that time. And then the areas that had 2 hour were areas that were closer to restaurants or, you know, businesses that wanted to turn over quickly. So that's where that came from at that time, and that program was brought through a fair amount of public consultation and through council. So just wanted to say that it wasn't just picked out of the air and chosen. It was at the time where it was, and try not to upset the apple cart in this process, and to make as few changes as we can. We hadn't gone back and, you know, talk to every single operator about what exactly will work for them, because everybody's a little bit different. So
Right, and can I just add the one question I just need to ask, because it was on the initial one, is why go away from the hourly rate? Like, why not let people be here for what they need to do? Like, as a tourist who's coming here, wants to shop, do an activity, like, why can't people just park, and won't people just move and kind of, like, when I go to towns, for example, there's always a strip, yeah, of time parking, but you go outside, just slightly outside, and you can go and park for the day or park for 4 or 5 hours, and it's just kind of hourly time. So it allows you to be down there doing what you need to do. And I just don't understand this, why we need limitation.
So I mean, every community is a little bit different. We have some similarities, places like Jasper and Canmore and Banff, that we've been talking about in some of our meetings. But we have other pieces that are quite a bit different. One of them being is we can't actually charge for the areas that you would have that normally. So Campbell Street, in most communities would be your prime parking area, to your point, meaning you could maybe have some different types of parking outside there. We don't have that program, so we have to make sure that if we're going to run a pay parking program, it's still moving traffic around. So that's not the only reason. It's just one of the contributing factors.
Oh, I was just curious. Okay, and then the reason you've moved from the 8-hour initial proposal to 4 hours, what caused that shift?
So we basically, as the program has evolved, we've been receiving feedback from the community, and we've received a significant amount of feedback from the community, and not as much from the businesses, apart from yourself. And you've been very consistent with you've come to the meetings and as a conversation that we've ended up with a program that supports our local residents, while at the same time trying to balance the sort of outcomes of our program. So making sure that there is some turnover in our downtown core in the summertime, and that's primarily to do not necessarily with somebody coming down and doing groceries and leaving again. I share your comment about when no one is really coming down here to stay a long time, but there are a fair amount of employees that come downtown in the summertime, and that was part of also the reason in the past. Well, when people had to actually move their cars. I remember a time there, I know that it happened at the district where people would have to turn those cars over. So that was kind of why we've landed where we've landed. And again, just back to the point, we didn't want to make too many new changes. So the program was always meant to evolve through the consultation process, and that's kind of where we're at today.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you.
And can I just ask one final question so I'm clear, and it's because I'm going to be finalizing my report. If it was 5 hours, does that make a material difference to you? Like, does it differ 1 hour?
Massive. Yeah, that is a massive amount, because my tours are 4 and 4.5 hours. I have a 6-hour tour. I mean, it's not, people can, go to the lot. Like, we don't offer that tour as much. I mean, it's still fairly frequent, but it's also tends to be only one tour. I have multiple tours going out. So it would basically eliminate street parking for all my tours. I mean, I don't know if I could operate, and I'd probably have to start picking people up. And I mean, on top of my management job and all the other things I'm doing, because I'm very overworked, it would be very hard on me. So it puts the business in question. So right now, how much I could do to keep this business going.
Can I just follow up on that point? You said that there's a potential for, not necessarily you, but for the business to pick people up, like in terms of like a shuttle or something like that in the morning? Or
well, yeah, like I would love that. So I mean, I run 4 businesses. I can't do another business. Like, I think that would be an amazing thing, period, whether you had hourly parking or 5 hours or 4 hours, because I travel a lot. I see that in it. I was in Costa Rica. I got picked up. I got taken to my zip line. I don't even have to use my car. I've always wondered why in Canada we don't have more of those kind of services, but you have to have people who want to offer that or pay for it, or the community go in together, like the hotels, to offer that. And that would cure a lot of problems, right? So the people who need to come downtown, come downtown. Right now, everybody needs to come downtown, and as they're staying down here, which, majority of tourists. So, I thought Dan's point was really interesting, that a majority of the users in these towns are not residents, but tourists. And, I do understand down here, a majority of the businesses probably don't come to the meetings because 4 hours is going to be fine for them. I'm an anomaly, and I'm fighting for my anomaly. If we want this kind of business in the downtown core in this location, that's what I need, right? And I'm probably the only one. So, I'll read the signal and I'll act accordingly, as any business would. I can't operate in a place where I can't function. So it's that simple, right? I mean, I'll see the result of this season, but I'm very concerned.
Thank you. I really appreciate the comments.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Natasha. I just wanted to take a moment. I saw that Mayor Law had his hand up. Mayor Law, did you have something to add at this time?
No, it's okay. I think that conversation between Ms. Barrett and Mr. Rogers will happen offline. I just had some notes I was jotting down, and that's all. So I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Natasha. I'm just going to promote you back to, or move you back to an attendee now. Okay, so we do have a few questions that have been submitted through the Q&A function. If anyone has a question that they'd like to ask in quote unquote in person using their video and their microphone, please feel free to use the raise hand function. But right now I'll just start asking the questions that have been submitted through Q&A. So the first question says, so employees are going to have to leave work approximately every 4 hours to go move their car. So when a business is super busy and a staff member will just have to tell people that they need to wait 15 or 30 minutes while that person goes and looks for a new spot.
Great question. I think it's a hard one to answer. I guess it depends on where you're working and what hours you're working. So, you know, if you happen to be working between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., you will have to move your car. I'll reiterate what Natasha and I were just talking about, which is these 4 hour and these 2 hour spots have always been in place in Tofino. Natasha was correct in saying that it used to be a shorter time frame, but it was still long enough that you actually had to move at one point. Through COVID and some of the year past, we haven't been enforcing as much as we have in the past because we've been focused on other bylaw issues. But again, I think it's something that, again, that hasn't changed. We're just going to enforce the rules that we have. And so if you are working in the downtown core and you're parked for 4 hours and you need to be there for longer, then you and the operator of your business will have to make some kind of accommodation to deal with that. Or you can park on site. And that's something we've been encouraging the business owners to consider with their employees. I think for the program, it works better if employees can park on site because it means the visitors can then park in the paid spot. So I think it will come down to each individual and each individual's business to work through that.
Thanks, Aaron. The next question asks, I'm a resident who owns 2 properties in town and qualify for beach parking. My vehicle is owned by my business, so will I be able to get a free pass as the vehicle is being used for non-commercial reasons?
I don't know the specific answer to that question. Perhaps you could email me at parking@tofino.ca and I'll reach out to Robbins. From what I do understand is that commercial vehicles were not eligible for the beach parking pass program because of I believe it was an insurance ICBC question, but I don't know for sure, so I would have to do that research. There is an option in the proposed changes to allow for commercial vehicles to be registered at a fee of $120 a year, and so that's $10 a month. I don't know if that might work for you, but please, follow up with an email to me at parking@tofino.ca, and I'll get that answer for you.
Thanks, Aaron. I see Mayor Law has his hand up again, so Mayor Law, please feel free to go ahead.
Well, I think I actually have an answer to that. I don't know if I should contribute now or later. So the answer actually comes under the community charter, and that's municipalities are not allowed to show preferential treatment for businesses. So whatever we give one business, if it's a free parking pass, we have to give all businesses. And I'll look to Ms. Atiana for that, but I believe that is the case. And so that is the reason that if it's a commercial vehicle owned by a business, then the beach parking pass costs $120 a year, which is $10 a month. So that's a separate thing. So I'm not sure that I just hazard to guess that that would continue with any pay parking, but that's my understanding. That's why the beach parking pass costs money for a business-owned vehicle. And can I say one thing? Maybe I'm just interjecting here, but in all of these conversations, I do want to remind people that we have about, is it 290 paid parking spots? Those parking spots have to be shared by all businesses, all residents, and all visitors every day. And we have way, way more people running businesses and working and visiting downtown and living here than we have parking spots. So there is got to be a give somewhere. So so I do want to point out that, you know, if employees are using a paid parking spot all day, that, you know, that is one of those spots that's gone. And just to point out that if every business had employees doing that, there wouldn't be a lot of parking spots left. So I just want to point out that this is a community endeavor, that we're all doing this for the betterment of each other in our community, to try to free up parking spaces and control parking and allow people to park and allow businesses to function. So I do want to just remind everybody at this time that this is a program meant for the betterment of our community and to share these very limited resources amongst numerous businesses and people and organizations and visitors. That's my spiel.
Thanks, Mayor Law. We don't have anyone else with their hand raised, so I'll get back to the Q&A box and I'll read the next question. So it asks, can we build a long-term parking lot near the bike park away from town?
Great question, one close to my heart. Right after we build a recreation facility, that parking lot would use. So in our recreation facility plan, which we've applied for a grant, there's a fairly large parking lot to service that recreational program. It's our hope that depending on how that goes and how our program goes, that it might be an opportunity for us to potentially have a long-term lot there or some paid parking. It would have to balance out with our own needs as a community and recreation, but, you know, primarily that recreation facility is being built for, you know, off-season type of activities. It's an indoor facility, so definitely on our list. For this year, there is a large sewer line going through there, so there'll be a fair amount of construction there this year, and that lot is fairly constrained with parking for people visiting the Tonquin connector as well. So not this year, hopefully in combination with a rec facility. Yeah, I think that's probably the best I can offer now, but I love the question.
Thanks, Aaron. We have one more question in the Q&A box, and that says, how did Howard Drive get lumped into paid parking all of a sudden?
Another great question. We actually, if you look at the current parking map, Howard Drive is covered in there. I think it's one of those areas we just hadn't had signed last year, nor was it listed in the schedule. What we understand through speaking with our bylaw enforcement and a couple comments we received from the community, that area is starting to become known as a place for free parking, and parking is starting to become a bit of an issue there with the trails that go to the beach. And so we just wanted to include that area in the beach program for this year. Again, with the resident passes, we're expecting that, you know, any parking we see there will be largely, you know, if it's paid, then the visitors will be paying for it. So that's how Howard Drive ended up on here. It didn't come in at the very beginning. It sort of came out in the mix of conversation.
Thanks, Aaron. So that's all the questions that we have that have been submitted, and we don't have any attendees with their hands raised. So maybe now I'll just pause and I'll give anyone who's in attendance an opportunity. If you are in attendance and you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to enter it in the Q&A box, or you can just use the raise hand feature down at the bottom bar of your Zoom screen, and then we'll promote you to a panelist and you can have a conversation directly with staff. So with that, I'll just give it a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, well, it looks like no one else has any questions for staff tonight. So I think with that, we'll wrap it up for this evening. I just want to say thank you again to everyone who's attended. This is our third Downtown Pay Parking Virtual Town Hall, and we really appreciate everyone's feedback and ideas and perspectives while we've developed this program. I will note that Talk to Fino, which is our community engagement page, will be updated in the next day or two with this option that council is endorsing, the sort of changes that are coming to the program. So there'll be updates on Talk to Fino, so please feel free to visit that. And if you have any questions that maybe you didn't ask tonight, you can email them directly to Aaron Rogers at parking@tofino.ca. Aaron, do you have anything to add before we sign off?
Nope, great. Thank you again for everybody attending.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.